Welcome to another episode of Candid Convos. Today's guest is Lori Saitz. Lori is a stress relief coach, podcast host of Finance a Four-Letter Word, and has worked with many lawyers, business owners, and entrepreneurs. I'm very happy to have her today. I was also a podcast guest recently, so I'm hoping for that to get out so we can share that as well. But in the meantime, allow me to introduce Lori to you. Lori, thank you for coming.
Thanks so much for having me, Joe. I'm excited to be here.
I'm very happy to have you. I'm also excited to talk about this because you are a very different type of guest that we usually have. But the one thing that I really like about this is that you're also constantly working with the same people that we work with. So before we jump into it, can you tell people a little bit about yourself?
Yeah, I'm on a mission to help the world stay calm and grounded no matter what is going on around them.
How long have you been doing this?
Well, I feel like this has been my life work, although I wasn't always doing it professionally, but I just, once I figured out the tools I needed to do it for myself, because I wasn't always calm and grounded. Had some personality where I was maybe a little more hair on fire in the beginning of my career, and then learned how to incorporate these tools and techniques that I share now with my clients so that I could be coming from this place of groundedness and making decisions and making choices from this place of feeling centered.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, that's very funny that you said that. I was recently talking about that with one of my friends, actually one of my best friends, that when you are in a difficult position or a difficult scenario, it's very important for you to know how to calm yourself and recenter yourself and then start making decisions, because if not, you just get taken away with all of that emotion. You agree?
Absolutely. Absolutely. A lot of people tend to react instead of respond. And reaction comes from that reptilian part of your brain that you're not thinking, you're just doing.
Mm.
And that's great if you're like an athlete and you've been trained to do, and you don't have time to stop and think. If you're a first responder, you don't have time to stop and think. You need to just do. But you are doing based on your hours and hours and hours of training. Whereas like the mere mortals are reacting to emotionally to a situation. So there's the difference, is reacting emotionally versus responding thoughtfully.
Yeah, it's the difference between a trained response or even a conditioned response and something that you have absolutely no control for it and you didn't train for that.
Right. And so, right, with what you just said is actually a better explanation of what I'm saying. So those first responders, those athletes, we say they're reacting, but it's really a trained response. It's not an emotional reaction.
Yeah. When you mention about thinking logically, well, lawyers, in order to structure a case, that's something that like a logical argument, a logical case, that's a must have. And when you're inside an emotional response, when you're caught up in the middle of that, it's quite difficult to achieve that. So, and then you mentioned about how you need to be or can be one way in one specific area of your life, so the personal side and then the business side, and then some of the things start weaving into or like merging into one another. I've listened so many times of how you need to separate one from the other, but I'm guessing that conversation could be addressed differently, like the type of person you need to build yourself up to be, because it's not like you're going to be able to separate it. Even more now when we're doing a lot of home office type of work. So now home and professional life are very much well mixed in one another. You need to be able to build yourself up in a very specific way, not to avoid one thing bleeding into another one, but to know how to respond to those things. So let me ask you this. What would you suggest to people out there, specifically business owners and law firm owners, that might struggle with dealing or recentering themselves and being able to make those logical cases and logical arguments?
Yeah, well, that's the matter of learning the tools and techniques to help keep you centered and grounded. And I want to go back for just a second to your point of, I actually don't believe in what we all talk about as work-life balance.
Mhm.
It's an integration.
Mhm.
So to your point, you can't, it's not about being one person in this situation at work and a different person at home.
Mhm.
It's all being one person
Mhm.
and maybe pulling out different characteristics, but it's an integration, a full integration in being who you are authentically in both places.
Mhm.
So how do you do that? And those are the tools and techniques that I teach people
Mhm.
on how to stay calm and grounded. But so the one other thing I wanted to mention was about distractions, because we have so many distractions, and this is what takes away from your ability to be focused
Mhm.
and to be logical.
Mhm.
Because think about how many times you have your phone is going off with texts and phone calls and email notifications, and your computer is going off with email notifications and social media notification. All these things are popping up, and you're trying to be focused to write,
Mhm.
write whatever it is that you need to prepare a case, and you're constantly being distracted. And I can't recall the exact number, but it's something like 20 minutes. You get distracted, it takes 20 minutes for you to refocus. Now, if you've been distracted 5 times in an hour, you never get back to being focused to what you're working on. It'll take you 10 times longer to get through this thing that you're writing than it would if you just turned off all the distractions.
Mhm. This is a virtual staffing company for lawyers and law firms and business owners, even.
Mhm.
But I've always been a very big advocate on you need to have a very important and dedicated space for one thing or the other. And distractions are going to happen. They're going to come. You need to learn how to deal with those and how to recenter and refocus yourself. But if you're able to, it's not like I'm separating my life from one aspect or the other, but address the needs that one side of my life actually has and try to work my best while being myself in all the different areas, the different aspects. But in this one, when I'm lawyering, I'm lawyering. When I'm
Right.
being a family guy, then I'm being a family guy. And if I need to actually like ask for a break and I need to finish or wrap this up or even prioritize and execute when something throws me off base, then it's important that I know how to do that without having my reality just spin out of control.
Right. This is exactly why it's so important to be able to focus on one thing at a time. When you talk about creating different spaces, that's a great point, because then you're signaling to your brain, okay, I'm sitting at my desk. I'm sitting in this chair at this desk in this place, and I am here to do this thing,
Mm.
which is work. Here I am to do work. It's hard when you are doing your work at like the dining room table, because now it has several purposes, right? Telling myself I'm here to work, but it's also where I eat and where I socialize and where I hang out with my family. Like, if you can have a dedicated space, it signals to your mind and your body, this is what we're here to do.
Mhm. First thing is, why do you think this is happening, and what do you suggest for people to do, business owners, law firm owners to do, in order to regain some of that control or some of that selective response that they should have?
First, I don't think this is a trend that's going to go away. I think maybe it's a quote unquote trend that's finally found its time.
Mhm.
Because when we're talking about mindfulness, and a lot of what I teach are some concepts of meditation, other concepts too, but part of my clients work with me on is meditation. That's something that goes back centuries to the beginning of time. People have always used mindfulness, meditation, prayer, whatever practice it is, to quiet their mind so that they can stay focused, so that they can also get in touch with that inner voice. What is that inner voice telling them? Which we are, again, so distracted, we don't even hear it. And when you can tap into your own inner voice, that inner truth that only you can hear, that's when you start really knowing who you are and being able to focus on bringing your true gifts out into the world.
Mhm.
So that's how you can best serve your clients. That's how you can best serve your community, is by tapping into that power.
I think it's still the same subject that we started talking about. Like, I think it's about that ability to recenter yourself when everything around you is chaos. I think that that's a deep and powerful aspect, maybe of this conversation and many others. So, to me, at least, this is an important takeaway that I'd like to point this out. The ability that you have to regain or recenter yourself will actually bring out the best version of yourself and will give out the best results that you have. And there's a lot that you can do in order to tap into that potential, develop that side of your personality or characteristics of your own character. That sounds weird, but it kind of makes sense.
Yeah.
Now,
Yeah.
Unfortunately, we are running out of time. So there's a couple of things that I'd like to know before we go out. Now,
Okay.
I'd like to give this conversation a little bit of a more superficial tone to it because I noticed something on your social media and I grew very curious about it. You call yourself the Zen Rabbit. Why?
My company is called Zen Rabbit. I don't call myself Zen Rabbit, but the company is called Zen Rabbit. And there is I know we don't have a whole lot of time, but I would encourage people to come to the website, which is zenrabbit.com, and see the story of why the company is called Zen Rabbit.
Now, one last thing though, because we like for people to know everything they can about our guests, would you kindly please tell our audience what you can do for them and where they can find you?
Sure. Well, going back to the calm and groundedness thing. So if you are feeling anxious, overwhelmed, hair on fire, tired of feeling like you live in this storm of chaos, I can help you find peace and calm, again, no matter what is going on around you. And they can find me at zenrabbit.com.
Well, thank you very much for sharing, Lori, and thank you very much for your time. I hope we have you as a return guest in the future. And it was an absolute honor having you and just having an honest conversation about such an important subject that I agree. It might not be a trend. It was trending thousands of years ago, and we're giving it the deserved importance that it has today. So thank you for your time and thank you for joining us.
Thanks for having me, Joe.
Well, guys, see you on the next time on another episode of Candid Convos.